Hey there everybody, welcome to our first little recorded session here. Sorry I didn't get it to you yesterday. I had hoped that Zoom would process the video, but they never got around to it, so we're going to have to do it a different way today. But I also want to talk to you just briefly about different types of argumentation for papers and how the class will be proceeding with respect to those types of argumentation. On the web page here, you can see for English 20, you'll see this first link here is paper on Toulmin method. All right, and with any luck, it'll come up here. There it is, and you can scroll down here, and this is basically it's called the Toulmin method. It's basically a philosophical mode of argumentation, whereby you have a claim. Your thesis, I'm sure you've all heard of this kind of writing before, particularly in argumentative writing, and then you have the grounds or the evidence that you provide to support your claim. And then the third major part of writing in that manner is something that's called the warrant, whereby you have various different kinds of evidence. Sometimes it's conflicting. Well, the warrant is your ability or opportunity as the writer to step in and talk about why your evidence is better than the other side's, or why it warrants the claim should be believed. Okay. In this philosophical type of writing, it's more combative, more argumentative, in the respect that you're arguing specifically for your side and trying to dispel the claims of others that might be counter to yours. You see this in political discussions and debates, whereby you can argue on your side for the positives, or you can argue on the negatives of the other side. Both of these types of things are allowed. Most of the time, though, you're arguing for your own perspective and the positive aspects of whatever it is that your claim is. That said, sometimes it makes sense to make a claim and then provide evidence, and then to rebut that claim and show why what the weaknesses in your own argument might be. But then, of course, what you have to do is then counter that rebuttal to say why this rebuttal doesn't apply. And if you can go to that level of development on your discussion of claim, evidence, and then rebuttal, and then countering the rebuttal, you will have gone to a great length of developing a particular argument. So that's the kind of argumentative writing with respect to the Toulmin method, and that's the way most of the time that people will argue in their papers. There's another kind of argumentation style called Rogerian method, or Rogerian argument, from the psychologist Carl Rogers, that basically wants to play things and keep things equal. It basically says you're making an appeal to the reader by how fair-minded you are. And in presenting both sides, you have the benefit of showing how you have come to understand both sides, but then at the end you offer one side or the other as the optimal for whatever particular reason. This level of argumentation is maybe more permissive in terms of understanding another side of an issue, but typically I'd say in the real world is not the kind of argumentation that's usually done. Usually when you're making a proposal, for example, you're arguing specifically for the benefits of your proposal. So that's more of that Toulmin style, philosophical style of argument. Okay? All that said, in this class, what we're going to be doing is maybe a little bit different than all of that. What I'm really concerned about today, mainly given the fact that so much of the information that's present on the web is of somewhat questionable source, or more than that, to the person who's the best data cruncher, if you will, oftentimes comes out in a superior manner, because you know, we are swarmed by data, and oftentimes those who can manipulate that data are in the driver's seat. So this is primarily a research-based class. So you'll have a topic, and you'll read about it with the assignments that I have. But then you're expected to go a little bit further and, you know, tell a story with respect to a particular topic, and then to make some sort of evaluation of the information that's present there. Okay, so it's really, you know, writing through research more than it is a classic argumentative style. Now that said, some of those same principles of the argumentative style of the Toulmin method will apply, because if you make a claim, and we will still have a thesis in the paper, you need to back that claim up. The difference here is that you're providing the research and the information and vetting that information as to whether it's applicable or not, whether it's good information, and then presenting it in your paper. Okay? So that's the gist of the class, is can you form a claim, can you find evidence, and then link that evidence to your claim, and then try to show that that evidence is somehow applicable or worthy of presentation and isn't fake news or isn't some other source of information that's problematic. Okay? So that's primarily what I want to talk about today. One other last thing here. If we go back to the previous page and we hit logical fallacies, and that same, you'll see a list of the kinds of basic rules of argumentation. You'll see things along the lines of an ad hominem attack. You know what that is. That's basically not allowed according to the rules of argumentation, where you attack the person as opposed to the argument itself. Ad hominem means against the man. Another kind of argumentational style that's not relevant to here you're getting the reflection. That's not relevant is the genetic fallacy, which, like the ad hominem, mistakes the origin of the argument as the problem and not the argument itself. There's several others up here. The slippery slope that leads you to a conclusion that might not be warranted from where it was you started, and several other. I mention those just because they're part of knowing how to argue appropriately. Certain kinds of rules are in place, these logical rules, but quite honestly it applies to mostly deductive logic. What I mean by that is, if you have a statement x equals y, therefore and y equals z, therefore x equals z, all right? So these are already statements that apply. But most of the things that we're going to be writing about is going to be using inductive logic, which means basically you're going to be looking at things you find out in the world and deciding whether that evidence is appropriate. These aren't statements that have been made previously and you're deciding whether the logical conclusion that you follow between these statements is an appropriate one. So I mention these logical fallacies just because I feel I'm kind of required for an advanced composition class, but probably you won't really have to apply them. If, however, you are going down a slippery slope, which means that you're leading to a far-gone conclusion or an unusual conclusion based on the original principles that you have, I may call you on that. Or if you're arguing against a particular position and you are arguing against the person who holds that position, well, that's an ad hominem. You can't do that. All right? But typically that's not what we see here. Typically the most important thing is whether you can find information to illustrate your points and whether you can bring it to bear to hold up the claim that you're trying to make. So that's what we have for today. I will see you next week, not on Monday because that's Labor Day, but on Wednesday. So until then, take care.